like when they put together a team of singers, the Temptations, the Miracles, and all of them, and they go around the country, and they do what they do. Well, that comes out of the old circuit of revivals. They used to have one preacher could invite you to another preacher. They still have them, in fact. They still have revivals all the time. A big preacher from out of town gonna come and help with a fundraiser or something, and it's gonna be a revival. And they got flyers at all the churches, and big time so-and-so gonna be there. Okay, so Dr. Franklin, or C.L. Franklin, whatever, he was big in his time, in the 50s. He was close to the biggest preacher in the country. He was right up there with Martin Luther King. He could preach as good as Martin Luther King, all of that stuff. So in the I guess you'd call it the Northeast, his radio program, it was big, and he did a lot of good. Anyway, the point was the picture that they portray on him in these new movies stuff, it's not accurate at all. Especially the part related to his relationship with Dr. King. They mention in some of these new movies about Aretha Franklin, about her father, but they portray, from what I've seen so far, they portray him as a total hypocrite, a womanizer. Not that he's a preacher now, he's not an imam, so those things are not abnormal. What preacher? Adam Clayton Powell. Just name anybody who wasn't. Martin Luther King, the king himself. Messy Jesse, everybody, right? That's a part of, not that I have friends, but with one of my good friends from Oakland. He's older than we are. He's a good preacher. I mean, he's a real, and so we was talking about like when I became an imam, he was really happy about it. He was really happy about it because, for him it was involved in religion, and he came by our Masjid once or twice, and he said, when I visited some of those mosques in Jerusalem, he went to Jerusalem, of course, and so he visited. He said they don't just like this. They don't have pews, because see, for them, the pews is about the biggest thing in the church. I mean, those pews are expensive. They're expensive, and it'll have on the back, this was donated by the down the street family. This is donated by the up the street family. This is a community. Those things are expensive. So when you don't have no pews in your place, to them, well, what do you do here? What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? No, if you ain't got no place for the fan, when it get hot, then they got to pull out the fan and the hymnals, and the days before air conditioning, the old black church was a good experience. I mean, no, I'm telling you, it was an experience. It was, let's call it salvation, entertainment. It served the whole community function, because that's the only place you could be yourself. That's where you could go and now we're going to be black here, right? because when you went on your job, half of the women, if you see old movies, you see all of the people that come to the door are black people. The maids are black. All that. That is actually true, especially from the 50s on back. It was still like that in the 60s, but in the 50s on back, all of the people had maids, butlers, and they was all black. I mean, a few people might have had one or two white maids, but they didn't, Anyway, so all of the music in the black community, when Ray Charles did the crossover to a religious sound a little bit, they was arguing with him and what have you. But all our big people, Sam Cooke, and all those people, almost everybody, Aretha Franklin, you name it, most of them came out of the church or came through the church. Some of our greatest, I don't care, man, you would be shocked with the amount if you was making a study of how many black entertainers, especially in the old days, came through the church, even now. That's where they come from. Okay, so the difference between spiritual behavior and secular behavior in the black community and music was very close, except for certain kinds. Like we had old Mississippi blues with the guitar and one singer that just, or maybe a harmonica. They wasn't that religious because all they sung about was whiskey and women. That's what they just whiskey and women. That's all they sung about. But you have to remember that in the black community, it was totally supported. The church was totally supported by women, mostly. And all the men, the old deacons and all that used to be giving advice. Oh, nigga, you don't know nothing about nothing. And then you realize that the old men in the church, they went out and did their hustling stuff, and and just before they died, they was in the church. No, the big ones. Have you ever heard of the Ward brothers? Yeah, but the movie, you see the Mac? You saw the Mac. Okay, the Mac. The two brothers that got the Mac Award of that year was Ted Ward and Willie Ward. Do you remember those scenes when they in the club and they get the right? Okay. Both of them, Ted got the Holy Ghost so bad you couldn't talk to him. Right? And Willie Ward, he went to Roosevelt's church. My friend, the last time I saw Willie Ward was at the church. In fact, the only time I saw him was at the church. I mean, I never saw him nowhere else but the church. So out of those four brothers, and probably they got that. Oh, that was the culture. You did out and did wrong all your life, and then y'all probably don't remember, it was a certain record called Going Down Slow. That mean, it used to be a thing, if you see my mother, tell her to pray for me, and all of that stuff. That mean he done went all around and did all the stuff that he did, and he going down slow. He's sick. He's getting old. That's the way they talk. I'm going down slow. And so if you listen to him, that they did things that even kings and queens never did. You know, they done lived it up. And they say, I may not have been a millionaire, but I done had more money than a millionaire. In other words, they lived what was called the fast life in the black community. Okay. Now, a lot of our greatest people come out of that environment. This lecture by Dr. C.L. Franklin was a lecture that I could give, or I have given the same lecture. When I had that run-in Oakland and I'm standing there bleeding and I'm telling my son, they said, we're going to fix it. I said, absolutely not. And then I gave a few things about why. Well, I picked that up a long time ago. I did it naturally because in all the prisons I was in, I was kind of like a little black leader. And then if we had riots, I would kind of like not lead them, but people would remember I was there, you know. Even in the riot of 64, yeah. I jumped up on the boxing ring in the field house and yelled, charge, all that kind of stuff. In the iron pile, we rushed the white boys. They were smart. They wouldn't got the iron. Because a field house, you know, a field house is like a big outdoor gymnasium. You got basketball courts, boxing ring, the big screen, and, you know, and for movies, everything. Because some places in certain prisons, at least modern ones, you couldn't go outside during fog line or go to the yard at certain times. So you go to the field house. The field house would be open. But the point is this, is that during the times that when they talk about the 60s and the 50s, Dr. C.L. Franklin is portrayed as a plain hustler, low-life womanizer. They don't have nothing like the lecture that he gave on there. The lecture that he gave is as close to black nationalism as you can get. But they never portray him. He's trying to give them a Christian version of don't go overboard to it, but this is what it is. Black power. Black power is this. And he starts off by mentioning one of the queens of Ethiopia or something like that. You know, so he's aware of black people in the Bible. All of that. Okay? So the point is that according to listening to that, I was very inspired because it justifies and it reminds us about what we're doing. And he talked about one of our friends, when he talked about where Dr. King had got his stuff. And Dr. King had got that stuff on Black Power from Willie Ricks. You ain't heard nobody in the United States mention Willie Ricks except here. Do anybody kind of remember Willie Ricks? If you was remembering, Willie Ricks. Willie Ricks was the one, he came to Oakland a few times when I was an imam. He might be passed away right now. But Willie Ricks was the one that was with all the brothers in those days, a black leader. And he's the one that coached Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, to come up. You could hear him in the background. This is in 68. He's saying, go on, say it. And so at first, he comes up and he's talking to the people, got them fired up. And then he says, Willie Ricks, you can hear him in the background. Go on, say it. He said, Black Power. Go on, say it. Black power. And pretty soon, see, everybody associates Kwame Ture with coming out with black power, but it was Willie Ricks. And Martin Luther King had researched that, and Martin Luther King had wrote about it in his book. And this is 1969 when that came out. Okay, Dr. King passed in 68. All right, he was assassinated in 68. So things were moving very fast, just like in the world we're in right today. Things are moving very fast. Something that was big last month, 2 months ago, it's important, but things are moving in the Islamic world. And Dr. C.L. Franklin, I think that was C.L., he was a big preacher at that time.